Go read the top 10 results for almost any keyword right now. Pick something that you know well professionally. Read all 10. You'll notice something. They all say roughly the same thing. Same tips, same examples, same structure, slightly reworded. Maybe one has a nicer design, maybe one has more headers, but the actual information, almost identical. That's the world information gain is trying to describe, and the mechanics behind it are more specific than most SEOs realize. Now, before I get into the patents behind information gain, one thing I do want to get on the record, Google has a lot of patents. A patent being filed or granted is not proof Google is actually using that patent in production. Companies patent things they're researching, they patent things they've shipped, and they patent things they may never ship. Nobody outside of Google can open up the ranking system and confirm for us which patents are live. What we can do is read what a patent describes, watch what happens in the wild, and decide whether the two line up well enough to take the mechanics seriously. For information gain, I think they do. But I want that caveat on record so nothing that I say here gets treated as Google is definitely doing this. It's a lot closer to Google has filed detailed descriptions of how this would work, and the logic lines up with real behavior I've seen in real projects. When SEOs talk about information gain, the concept that they're describing comes from a Google patent that was filed in 2006 and granted in 2012. It's called Detecting Novel Document Content. This patent was originally designed for Google News. Multiple outlets cover the exact same story, and Google needs to figure out which articles break new ground versus which ones are just rewording the AP wire. But the same mechanics apply to any set of documents on a shared topic. The system works by breaking documents into two components: information nuggets and interactions. Information nuggets are specific trackable units of information, named entities, people, places, products, concepts, numbers, word sequences from the document title. These are concrete, measurable things. And the distinction that you need to pay attention to is a phrase like server performance can vary is not a nugget. There's nothing specific or trackable there. On the other hand, a phrase like a 2 GB RAM allocation on a paper server handles approximately 15 concurrent players before TPS drops below 18. That contains multiple nuggets that probably don't exist on any other page covering that topic. Interactions are pairs of nuggets appearing in close proximity. The system doesn't just track whether an entity shows up in a document, it tracks whether entities appear in relationship to each other. A page that mentions two people separately scores differently than one that connects them in the same sentence. The relationships between entities matter, not just their presence. Each nugget gets scored by rarity. If a nugget appears in only one or two documents in the corpus, it's going to score higher than one that appears in most of them. Rarity drives the score. Now, here's the part that matters for how you structure your content. The patent includes a depth weighting mechanism. Matches closer to the top of a document are weighted more heavily than ones buried deeper in the text. Where you place your novel information changes its contribution to the score. Front-loading unique content isn't just good writing advice, it's structurally rewarded under this patent's logic. And one more note, this patent has no truth verification layer. It measures novelty structurally and statistically. Whether that novel content is accurate or fabricated isn't evaluated by this system. That's handled by other systems in Google's ranking system. So no, you can't game this by making things up. But you should understand that the system is measuring structure and rarity, not quality directly. Now, there's another patent around information gain that I see gets cited all the time and kind of confused with this first patent. It's called Contextual Estimation of Link Information Gain. It was filed in 2018, granted in 2023 with continuation patents through 2024. The same caveat applies. We don't know if it's live, but we do know what it describes. And what this patent describes is completely different from the 2006 patent. This one is about session level personalization. It tracks what an individual user has already viewed during a search session, then re-ranks the remaining results to surface documents with the most new information relative to what that specific user already clicked on. It's about sequencing results for one person, not scoring whether a page has unique content compared to the rest of the web. So here's how it works. A user searches, clicks on a result, reads it, comes back to the SERP. The system now knows what that user consumed, and it recalculates scores for the remaining results and promotes the ones that would add the most new information given what the user already saw. Every subsequent click triggers another recalculation. Two quick scenarios directly from the patent. The first one is pogo sticking. A user bouncing quickly back to results could cause Google to re-rank and surface content with higher information gain for that user. The second example is follow-up searches. When a user makes a slightly modified query, Google could factor in what they already consumed in order to avoid serving redundant results. The patent was also written partly in the context of automated assistants and chatbots, and in that context, the system skips redundant information entirely. If document 1 covered causes A and B of an error, the assistant only reads cause C from document 2. Now that context might be relevant to how AI overviews select and present information. This patent isn't directly about content strategy the way the 2006 patent is, but it tells you that Google is at least thinking about information redundancy at the individual session level, not just the corpus level. Now, before I show you what to do with this, I want to set expectations honestly. Information gain is not a requirement to rank in the top 10. Go look at the top 10 for almost any keyword. What do you see? A lot of pages saying similar things, covering similar points, often with similar structure. Some of them rank, they rank well. They've been ranking for years. If information gain were a ranking requirement, those SERPs would look very different from how they actually look. So what is it practically? Well, in my experience, really two things. First, it can be a leg up. When you have two pages with similar topical coverage and similar technical fundamentals, the one that says something the other pages don't can get an edge. That edge is usually modest, but modest edges compound, and in competitive SERPs, those modest edges are often the whole ballgame. Two, the second thing with information gain, and this is the one I'd put first, it helps solve indexing problems, specifically the crawled currently not indexed designation in Search Console. That's actually the use case where I've seen information gain move the needle most reliably, and it's worth spending a minute on. Now, if you run any site at scale, you've probably dealt with crawled currently not indexed in Search Console. Google found the page, Google crawled it, Google decided it wasn't worth keeping in the index. That's what that message means. And there are a lot of possible reasons for that designation. It could be thin content, it could be duplicate content. A big one is often just low site level authority. But one cause I've seen over and over is redundancy. The page doesn't add anything to what's already in the index on that same topic. And from Google's perspective, if they already have hundreds of pages saying the same thing, why keep another version of it? And this is where the 2006 patent's logic lines up clearly with observable behavior. The patent describes a system that can measure whether a document adds anything novel to the corpus. Whether or not the exact patent is what's running, something a lot like it appears to be influencing index decisions. I had a client project that I shared in a note on the weekly newsletter where 106 pages had fallen into crawled currently not indexed. And when they came to me, part of what we did to fix it was adding real information gain. We added a real world examples section that none of the competing pages had. We went through people also asked questions and branched into subtopics that weren't being covered. We interviewed the client's sales team to pull in practitioner knowledge the SERP didn't have. And after those changes that we made, 100% of those 106 pages ended up re-indexed. It wasn't the only change that we made, and I'll link the full write-up of that project in the description, but the information gain additions were a significant part of it, and that pattern has held up across other projects. When pages are stuck and crawled currently not indexed, adding genuine information gain is one of the most reliable levers I've found for pulling them back in. So if you take one thing from this video, take this. Before you think of information gain as a ranking strategy, think of it as an indexing strategy. If your pages aren't in the index, nothing else matters. Ranking is a problem you only get to have after you've solved indexing. Okay, so you've made it this far. You've decided information gain is worth factoring in, either for indexing or as a differentiation layer once you're already competitive. Here's how the mechanics translate into practice. So the first thing that you need to do, you need to audit the SERP before you write anything. Read the top 5, maybe top 10 results for your target keyword. Note the entities they all mention, the points they all cover, the examples they all use. That's your baseline. You need enough of it for topical relevance, but it also won't differentiate you. Then find what's missing. What do you know from experience or client work or industry knowledge that none of those pages are covering? What subtopics do they skip? What specific data, tools, or examples could you include that they don't? Lead with that novel content. The 2006 patent weights content earlier in the document more heavily. So make sure that you don't bury your unique insight down in paragraph 12. Put it closer to the top. Also, use specific entities, names, numbers, tools, methodologies, data points. A phrase like SEO tools can help contains 0 scoreable nuggets. Use a specific tool name with a specific use case. And then you want to connect novel entities to the core topic. Interactions matter, meaning proximity between nuggets. A random unique fact with no relationship to the topic's central entities doesn't score well. Also, make sure to draw from sources outside the SERP. If your research consists only of reading the pages that already rank, your output's just going to be another version of those pages. The SERP is where the redundant information lives. Now, that process sounds very simple, but it's also time consuming. If you do it by hand for every page, it will take a lot of time. So what I did is I built a Claude skill that runs it for you. And a quick note for anyone who hasn't used Claude skills, skills are reusable instruction packages. Instead of writing a detailed prompt every time, a skill teaches Claude a workflow it runs consistently. You install it once, and Claude follows it automatically whenever you ask it to. The link I'll leave in the description to download the skill also includes instructions on how to install and use a Claude skill if you've never done it before. The skill runs a 6-step analysis, does SERP content analysis, topical foundation mapping, what's already well covered by everyone, gap detection, which is probably the most important step, information gain scoring. It will go high, medium, low, or none based on how many results cover each opportunity. Unique angle identification, so it looks for concrete recommendations, not just something like add unique insights. And content freshness assessment, tries to flag outdated competitor content. Now, this skill attempts to find information gain opportunities, but it doesn't have the experience you do. If you have additional insights to give it, do so. It will only make it work better. What it will do for you then is give you ideas on how best to incorporate that information. The output is a structured map of what to cover thoroughly, what to skip past quickly, and what to lead with. The skill is completely free, and the download link is in the description and in the written version of this on the SEOpub.com. So let me show you how this actually looks. I actually ran the skill on a search query already to show you what the output looks like. So the query I chose was how to soundproof a home office. And this is the output that came back. The first part is a SERP summary, where it will tell you who appears in the top 10, a little bit of information about what they cover, what type of content they're spitting out. Then it goes into the topical foundation. It'll show you how many of the results are covering these different topics, different points. If, for example, seal gaps around the door, 10 out of 10, the top 10 cover that. Door sweep or use a draft stopper, 9 out of 10. Acoustic foam, 9 out of 10. And then as you scroll down, this is where it gets really useful. It's the high information gain opportunities. So it'll show you things, it labels them as must include. You don't have to include any of this, of course, but it shows you things that are opportunities for you. So for example, there's an opportunity to include information about measuring your baseline decibels before buying anything. And explains why it's a high information gain opportunity and how best to implement it. Another one is AI microphone software as competing solution to physical soundproofing. Here it says 0 of the top 10 results mention crisp NVIDIA broadcast or native Zoom Teams AI noise suppression. That's something that you can add in your content that the competitors don't have. And it goes on with some suggestions. Then it will break down some strong opportunities, decibel reduction benchmarks per intervention, cost, impact to installation, and it goes through those for you, same sort of thing. Then look at the differentiation strategies. And what this will tell you is ways that you can really set your content apart from the top 10 results. For example, this first one here, it says build a decision tree, not a tip list. So instead of building just a list of tips like most of the other top 10 are, you can start with some questions here to build a decision tree. And the questions it says is, am I the receiver or the transmitter of the noise? Is the noise voice, TV, traffic, HVAC, footfall? Do I own or rent? Which of course could make a big difference in what sort of suggestions would work for you. If you're a renter, you can't rebuild the room or change too much compared to if you're a homeowner. It shows running your own decibel reduction measurements. You could interview a acoustics engineer and have them on and get some quotes from them. Maybe even embed the video interview with them. Just different things different ways of presenting the information that the other top 10 are not. And then there'll be some freshness opportunities. If this one, it won't always find, but sometimes it does. The freshness opportunities, a big one here, AI noise canceling software. For whatever reason, the content is a little bit older pre-COVID when everyone was working from home. And this is pretty much absent from the top 10, even though it's pretty popular today. So that's a good thing to add. Home office phone pods, just different things that these other results are not including that they should be. And then it will give you gap classifications, as well as if there's seasonal, evergreen opportunities there. And then it will also give you structure recommendations. Again, you don't have to follow these, but leading with the highest information gain opportunities first. This is a really great line to use. Before you buy anything, measure your baseline. The question most people skip, do you need soundproofing or do you need to sound clean on calls? Soundproofing versus acoustic treatment, the distinction that saves you $500. And then other things, it'll tell you, these are things that everyone's kind of covering that you should cover. Soundproofing your door, windows, walls, floor, ceiling, etc. And then you can layer in the high information gain differentiators as well. So that's the output, and it gives you a concrete map of what to cover, what to skip past quickly, and what to lead with. And as a quick recap, Google holds patents describing information gain mechanics. We don't know for certain these exact patents are running. What we do know is that treating content like it's being scored for novelty and entity interactions produces real-world results, most reliably for indexing issues and as a modest but meaningful edge when you're already competitive. And the question I'd leave you with is this: if someone already read the other pages ranking for your target keyword, would your page teach them something new? And if the answer to that question is no, you're not adding information, you're just adding to the pile. And in the worst case, Google decides your page isn't worth keeping in the index at all. So again, this skill is free to use. The link will be in the description and in the written version of this note on the SEOpub.com. If you found this useful, please subscribe to the channel. I put out notes like this every single week, and I'll see everyone in the next one.